On January 26, 1878, a Saturday, Fayette County residents packed into a one-room schoolhouse in East Hickman, a community of homes, farms, shops, and church that clustered around Shelby's Branch and the Tates Creek Pike, 11 miles southeast of Lexington. They were there to hear eyewitness and character testimony in the trial of Micajah Brock for the murder of Tom Turner, a black farmhand who had been shot a week earlier by a group of masked assailants shrouded in winter moonlight. Turner's was the third of 3 murders that night in East Hickman, all black men, all allegedly connected to the Christmas-time murder of the white shopkeeper Jacob Shootman, an act for which members of the East Hickman and nearby Jacks Creek communities had already hung a man. This man, also black.
This is the dawn of break of day.
In the taxonomy of official reasons given for the over 4,000 lynchings documented by the Montgomery, Alabama-based nonprofit Equal Justice Initiative, the mob murder of Tom Turner exists as a sort of asterisk. The black Fayette Countian was not accused of murder or sexual assault, not robbery, not vagrancy, not physical assault. Neither was the man accused of breaking any racial customs, like failing to doff his cap at passing white ladies. Turner seems simply to have been black and nearby when a mob of white Fayette residents got finished hanging 2 other black men who had been detained earlier in the day and held overnight for trial in the East Hickman schoolhouse. Neither evidence nor allegation connected Turner to any crime or indiscretion. He was not included in the January arrest warrants that delivered Claxton and Davis to the schoolhouse from which they were abducted and hung. And unlike the other men lynched in connection to the murder of Jacob Shootman, all of whom seem to have been taken from the Kidtown area some miles away, Turner lived within a short walk of the East Hickman homes and shops clustered along Shelby's Branch, within sight not only of the Shootman household, but also of Micajah Brock. Of the crowd assembled at the school for the January 26 trial, the Kentucky Gazette would note,
"A large part were Negroes who manifested the liveliest interest in the proceedings."
In January 1878, black testimony in criminal trials was still a new phenomenon for state residents. Because Kentucky was not part of the Confederacy, Civil War-era proclamations that had freed slaves and compelled their testimony in court had not applied to black residents here. As with the right to freedom, the right to testify in court came late to this Union state, not until 1872, and even then over the continued opposition of the Bourbon Democrats, mostly former slaveholders whose political stronghold overlay the East Hickman bluegrass community where Turner was shot. The case against Micajah Brock was also among the first to occur under Home Rule, without the presence of federal forces who had been enforcing the rights of freedmen since the end of the Civil War. Brock's trial would help determine the new normal for black-white relations under Fayette Home Rule. The crowd, both black and white, who had filled the East Hickman schoolhouse certainly understood this. At the trial, prosecutors presented only 2 witnesses, Hannah, who had watched her husband die while holding their baby, and also Ike Micajah, whose house faced the cabin where Hannah and Tom lived, and who was landlord to both the Turner and the Brock families. Both witnesses testified that a group of 3 to 5 men arrived to the Turner cabin sometime after 10 p.m. on the night of January 16th. Hannah, who testified first, stated that the darkness of the night had hid the identities of all the attackers save one, Micajah Brock. Brock lived a half-mile away with his wife and 2 children in one of the several East Hickman homes that lined Shelby's branch, a close neighbor, in fact, to the Shootman family. Hannah testified that she had known Micajah for 5 years, seeing him as recently as the week before the Shootman murder. On the night her husband was shot, she recognized Brock's voice. He had been the one who said,
"We got that son of a bitch now."
And later,
"Shoot him!"
the prosecution's other witness, Ike Micajah, confirmed Hannah's timeline, observing from a window in his house a group of 3 unidentified men attempting to break into the Turner cabin before midnight, and soon after that, gunshots. A well-used trail, he stated, led from his house to the woods a mile distant where Claxton and Davis had been hung. Brock's alibi, that he was home for the night with a toothache, seemed shaky. Lawyers for the defense instead used a slurry of character witnesses to question Hannah's claim that it was Brock she had heard proclaiming,
"We got that son of a bitch now."
Brock was a day laborer, a renter like his neighbors the Shootman family, and, for that matter, like the Turner family on the rise above him. Here's how one of the Lexington papers described him.
Brock is a married man with a large family and is about 50 years of age, is considered a good specimen of the class of people who inhabit this part of the country. While his language and manners show him to be illiterate, his general appearance indicates that he knows better.
And yet, all Brock's character witnesses come from Fayette County's more respectable set, landowners and leaders, many of whom belonged, like Brock, to the East Hickman Baptist Church.
Micajah is a quiet, industrious, peaceable man who attends church regularly with his family. He has the reputation of being a good, law-abiding, and peaceful citizen. It is a reasonable conclusion that he is not addicted to swearing.
Micajah has a reputation of being a peaceful, orderly man. I have never heard him to use an oath.
I have never heard him swear in his life.
The general reputation of Mr. Brock is that of a peaceable, quiet, industrious, good citizen.
I have never dealt with a cleverer man in my life. Never heard him use an oath or swear.
The defense worked. In early February, Brock, like everyone else tried for the 4 East Hickman lynchings across 1877 and 1878, was acquitted. The newspaper reported,
Turner's wife was the only witness against him, she swearing that she recognized his voice. In return, he proved a very good character for peace and quiet, and in general, good behavior.
I first heard about Tom Turner in 2016, after contacting the Equal Justice Initiative about what they knew about my county's lynchings. At the time, my city's leaders were still debating whether to keep 2 Confederate statues that surrounded our city square.
News hour in Barristan, and that poll found that 78% of Republicans are now satisfied with the investigation, 35% of Democrats, and about half of independents.
I went looking for other stories, new soil to dig into.
Is that something you're hearing? Yes.
Look at the world, it's waking up. I couldn't sleep for a dream. My weary soul is finally home. I had the strangest feeling. This is the dawn of break of day, after the midnight party. These ringing ears have waited years. Far down the streets, I see the signs. The crowd is breathing faster. Some must have walked 100 blocks. I see the flocks and pastors. Oh, what a time to be alive. Tears of the past forgotten. It's been a long and lonely night.
I don't know why, Denise, Michael, and I dig. Sometimes all there's left to do is to get down on your knees and do it.
They ring, they sing, they sing. The darkest hour is past. They ring, they sing, they sing. A little joy at long last. The Brazos rose, ain't no more cane. We grind it down to sorghum. Stop the freedom train.
I arrived in Fayette County in 2000, a non-native transplant, single, carefree. "20 years later, married, a father, I share enough proximity to Tom Turner to imagine what his loss meant to his family, to his community. I can't hope to know the specifics of that loss, but I can keep digging and use the soil in amending my own Fayette roots.